Welcome back to Woodcrafter's Corner. It is so good to see you again. I have in front of me here a blank and what we'll be doing today, which is the knight. And so in this third episode of our whittling series, this is what we'll be carving. So this is the next thing. So hopefully to you this looks like a horse, because it does to me. But that is what we'll be carving. Now, as far as the blank goes, as I talked about in the first episode, or the prequel of the series, if you will, this is 1.5 inches high. Not sure why I phrased it like that, but you get the idea, and it's 1 inches on all sides. So if you have a basswood blank, which I'll leave a link to in the description where you can get your own, that makes it super easy. Just measure 1.5 inches and cut it, but if not, all you really have to do is get a piece of wood that's similar in size, and it doesn't even have to be square because we will be cutting off these corners. So, but that's what I have to work with. Now, if you watch the other episodes, you'll know that all of these that we've done so far have this round base, and the knight is no exception. And so it is going to be the width, or the diameter if you will, of this 1 inch by 1 inch piece of basswood. So in order to cut this out in the base that we want, all you have to do is take your bottom here, is pick a side for the bottom. Mine's gonna be this one because it's flat, and this one is not, so that is my criteria. Now moving on, all you have to do is make a circle that touches on all four sides. So we've done that in the previous episodes, I don't know what you want to call them, of this series, and we're just doing the same thing here. So all the bases for all the pieces will all be the same rough size. So that's literally all you have to do. It doesn't have to be fancy, which is great because I don't think I can make a fancy circle. So that's the bottom. Now, unlike the previous ones in the series, this one has quite a bit more of the design. And so if you have a pattern, which I have made, and I'll include a link to in the description, then that will help a lot. But since I just have one here, to make this myself, all I did was eyeball it. And all you have to do is make a super rough outline on the blank here. So basically, we know we want the horse to look a certain way. I'm sorry, the knight. It's a chess piece. So really all you have to do is these big big shapes. So there's the head, for example. Now we do want it to take the full width of this blank. So the nose should meet here, the back of the neck should be here, and the top should be up here. So that will help give you an idea of how we're spacing this out. The thing is, it doesn't have to be exactly perfect or anything like that, because not only will you be making changes as you go and adjustments, but if yours looks a little different than mine, then that's fine. You know, if it can be unique even between the two pieces. I like uniformity, but I also like if little things happen that just make it a little more unique. I hope that makes sense, because it barely does to me. So then that is what we got. Pretty straightforward, and a lot of this is going to get carved away anyway. So this is just an initial outline to give you an idea of where you'll be carving. If you want, you can also turn it over, and I do have a front-facing pattern as well. And you can see I've even labeled my blank here, very organized. And you can just divide this up into sections. So here's the base. Of course, you can outline as well. And this one is even less important because it's more important that you get the side right, side outline. But you can see that this just gives me an idea. Oh yeah, I'm gonna be taking out big chunks here. You can even, if you want, do the top view, which is literally just a shape like this. But again, I've included a top view in the pattern, which you can find at the link. So that is pretty much it. I don't do both sides of the pattern. And if you have a larger knife like this is my roughing blade from Flex Cut. It's good to use that for this next step because we're going to make these indentions that you see here. So obviously there's some empty space that we need to get rid of. So to do that, you can start a line wherever the midpoint of these big sections are, so that at least gives you an idea on this side, on the back, and the front here, where you'll be taking it out. And that lined up pretty well. Literally, this is just a guideline just to give you an idea and help a little bit. So I'm dividing up into sections basically the head section, the midsection, and the base. So the first mark I'm going to make is this one right here. So I've already made my line, but if I hadn't, I can just do that move right here. And on the back side here, just push in. And we're kind of going to make an S shape on that wood, on this wood here. So see if you can make that a little bit level, just eyeball it, and then push in as hard as you want. I tend to do more of a rocking motion. So that is literally all we're going to do on all of these, but repeatedly. So we're going to make it a little deeper each time. If you have a gouge, you could make quicker work of this, but not everybody does. And I want to make this as accessible as possible. But with a gouge, you could go across here and knock out a big chunk pretty easily. But this won't take too long. Alright, so once you start to get close to the outline you made, you can kind of take a step back and just make sure that it's exactly where you want it, and in this case it is. So I'm going to switch to this neck head area here, and all I'm going to do is the exact same thing. Alright, that's about as much as I want to do on that side, because this will leave a lot of room for me to be a little more creative, I guess you could say, so I'm not going to rough out all the way under the chin right now. Leave that for next time. And then for this, since we're up here at the corner, I'm going to do an even less precise thing. For this move, you'll want to have a glove to be able to stop you. You want to start to go really slow here, because as you can see, it starts to break off, which is fine for now, since we're just in the roughing out stage, but you can also use your finger here to stop it a little bit and continue to cut through if you have protection on your finger. Now up here we have the hair, so we want to be careful not to take off too much of this corner, but I also don't necessarily want to do a V-cut here yet, because I'm not 100% sure how this will play out. Maybe a little bit. Might as well. Alright, so as you can see from the side, we're doing pretty good. I'm going to take off this little bit right here just to round it out, because I already know that obviously the head here is not going to be a square. So now that we have this general outline done, we're going to be able to carve away on the sides and be a little more comfortable with losing this outline. So let's go back to the bottom here, and we know that we want to make a circle, so let's just take off these corners. Super easy. Alright, so we've kind of rounded that out a little bit. Now what I like to do for the next step, I'll grab a smaller knife here and then just round out the parts that we kind of roughed of this circle, because the next step will be to take care of this bottom section, which includes the base, before we move on to the upper section, which is obviously the head. So comparing the two, we see that there is a section here which we sort of already marked with the pencil. And that's about where we want the base to be. So like with the others, all that involves is making a cut all the way around the entire thing. And like the others, I just make one mark and then start to go around. I lightly press the first round. And that's why, because they don't always meet up. So I'll do it again a little bit, making sure to go a little higher this time. And that time I pretty much nailed it. It was close. So I'm going to do that again, only a lot deeper this time, but not pressing too hard, because as close we are to the end of the grain here, we don't want to push in really hard and snap off a piece. Alright, so I've made that mark relatively deep, and given how this is going to end up being shaped, I'm going to go ahead and begin making the base. And as with the previous ones, we're going to start by making additional cuts, stop cuts, starting at about the halfway point between the bottom and the cut we made. Because if we start from the bottom, we risk snapping off a bunch of pieces. We don't intend to, so start here about halfway and then just come up to the top. And there you go. So once you make one round, I'll do it again, this time making the line a little bit deeper, so that way I can go in a little bit further. Alright, so you can see the base starting to take shape there. That's what we want. Now it's time to move on to doing this exact same move from the top down. So basically, as you can see with the finished one, we have a similar shape, only a lot smaller on the base. So we do want to take out some more there. So it's the same move, being careful not to, being very controlled, because if we start to push really hard, we risk breaking off the base that we've already made. So with a cut like this, I'm only using this thumb to push. This hand is only stabilizing. Alright, so you can see where that's coming together. Now we will want to make that a little bit deeper, because as you can see, we've still got quite a ways to go. So let's do that real quick. Alright, so that's giving us a good idea of where we're going here. Now what I'm going to do is take out a bunch from the sides, because if you have that front facing pattern, or if you made your mark in the front, you can see these two marks remaining actually from where I did it before, and those will actually stick around, but we've got quite a bit still to take off. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and we're gonna lose our beautiful drawing. But even though I am taking off a lot, I'm not doing a lot at once. Just make small cuts. With the grain here, it's gonna be really easy, but at least since we made those V cuts before, we can still tell where we're going to be cleaning up. So to make this a little bit easier, at least to display, and you might do this for yourself. Since we do have this section down here that's a little bit wider, just above the base, let's just make another line. And this is super rough because we're going to come back in later, fix that, and that'll just give us an idea of what to leave when we come back to it, because we still want to rough out a bunch of stuff up here, but not down here so much. So that's what we'll do. Leave this, leave this. So you can just make another stop cut just like we did with the base. And that'll just give you an idea. Or you can just start to carve up from it. And I'm still working from these two lines that I had made that indicate to me how wide this horse is. But if we want to err on the side of caution, we can make these out a little bit wider just to leave us a little more room just in case. So I'm going to only cut to the outer portion of those marks. Alright, that should do us for the roughing out portion. Now it's time to get back into the smaller details and making those cuts here a little bit deeper. Alright, so at this stage we have the outline, we have it roughed down relatively close to where we want it, and if I compare the two, you can see that we have a ways to go. It's a little bit big still, which is totally fine. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a better outline now. So here's how I'm going to do it, and this is again just going to be super rough. Alright, so as you can see, I've made a little bit of a higher mark here because this base is going to continue to come up. I'm not sure why I'm drawing all over it, but with pencil you can just erase, that's fine. So that is that's going to be the real line of where our base ends up being. You'll see what I mean. But this is pretty close to the way I want it. It's better to err and make it a little bit bigger than you end up wanting it. But what I do know as I'm making this is that the tip of the snout here will come all the way to the edge here. The back will come pretty much all the way to the edge. That's the way I will have it. This will come all the way to the edge. So all I'm doing is making these marks a little bit deeper. So that's about it. I'm going to whittle out these sections so that they're pretty close to where we want them at the very end. And then once that's done, we can come in and take off more here. But since we'll have this done, we won't need to make the pattern again. So let's get right to it. And you'll see as I go here that all I'm really doing is clean up. It's continuing to round out certain corners, certain edges, while also making these cuts just a little bit deeper. And as you go, just try to make the other side even with it, and you won't have to worry about having a pattern on this side. So the next thing we'll do is to begin to flesh out, if you will, this section that you see here on the sides and on the back here. Basically, it's kind of this part where you can see that the knife has gone in and made this kind of divot. Really not sure on the terminology on that one, obviously, but that's what we want to do, and that will enable us to begin forming the shape of the rest. So that's where we want to start. What I'm going to do is take off just a little bit because it is narrower than that, as you can see, than what we have here. We're going to come back to that. So first, just taking off small amounts around the entire diameter here, which as of right now, up to this point, we haven't really touched this part. Okay, so now I do want this area here to remain at the width it's at, but I'm gonna pick a point, and that looks like right about here. You can draw a line if you want, that I want to begin making this kind of sweeping. And to do that, all you do is you go in at an angle here, like that, and then you just slowly turn the knife. And you do want to do it slowly because, especially as you're working with the grain, it doesn't like to always behave the way you'd want. So we're going not only slow, but taking off just tiny chunks at a time, not big ones. That will get out of hand really quickly. So you can already start to see that shape taking form. And we're just going to keep doing that basically all the way around. And the reason we started doing this now is because as we come up, we continue to take some more off the sides up towards the top. So you can see how that's going. Alright, so at this point we've got everything kind of fleshed out the way we want it. Now you'll notice, and hopefully this showed up in the time lapse a little bit, but the front here I left this curving design around the sides and back, but around the front it's a little more not present, so just wanted to point that out. So the next steps will really be just adding the details and then just kind of finalizing things. So we've made this relatively narrow. We're going to end up making the face here a little more narrow, but let's talk about the ears for a second. So for me, and what I've done, the ears come back and you can kind of see, draw a line here, and they're basically just a cutout part of this hair up here. And so I'll do the same thing on this side. And you can make these even as you carve, but this just gives us an idea. So that's how I've chosen to kind of design mine. But let's proceed. And to make these ears kind of stand out a little bit, you do have to be extremely careful. If you'll notice, I switched to my Helvy knife, which I really love for just these details as I get in here, and it's also razor sharp. But anyway, you want to have something that's super sharp, a blade that's relatively thin, and be just very careful here, because working so close to the end grain here, we really do have to pay attention and just be mindful of how you're pressing in. So as we've done with other tricky sections, we're going to press in, rocking kind of back and forth, being careful not to push too hard. And we'll do the same thing up here. It's just as we get up here, and especially working with the grain, it's going to be way too easy to lose a section. So we'll take these a little at a time, carving out these little chunks slowly. And so that's what we'll do. We'll keep coming in, and you can make this as thin as you want. Obviously we have some work to do on the face still, but if you wanted to, you could say, well, I want the hair to look like this, or more like that maybe. That'll give you a stopping point. So you can cut up to that going this way. And again, being very gentle. It's so easy. And then come in here. There we go. Looks good. And then we'll kind of do a similar thing here, but I'm going to go way less deep. All right, so at this point, it is time to really start to shape the head on its sides, as we can see on this one, for example. So we have the cutout of the hair and the ears, and really all we have to do now is add these little marks that you see here, and then to bring in and round out the shapes. So let's start with the head, and all we have to do is, well, just start narrowing the head a little bit. The actual, like the snout, I guess you could call it. And we'll just work back and forth on both halves, both sides, so that it's a little more even. And then we'll start making these kind of wider marks on the side, and I'll show you what that involves, but it basically is going to be a few cuts in this direction. So for example, I might come up here like this, and then down to this, making it kind of look more cut out than it really is, but it also gives it kind of an extra little something. Same thing on this side. And now we'll just kind of round things out, make things even. I like the upper part of the head up here where the ears are to be a little narrower. So I'm kind of taking off a little bit around there. Like so, making it even on both sides. And then I'll do the same kind of thing to the mohawk. Now it is tricky, but I just want to take off some of these edges. And then I'll also kind of round out the ears here just by taking off those edges. Not much, just a small amount. But you could leave yours if you like that kind of stark edge. It's kind of a style unto itself. It's kind of cool. But I didn't do my other one like that. Alright, and then the next step for me will be, I'm going to make these cuts a little bit deeper, kind of angled upwards a little bit as well, to at least give the impression of a jawline. And you can see how that really does change the overall appearance. And then what I also like to do is take the snout and make it even more cut out towards the top, or kind of this section here. Careful. Might have to come from the other direction if it starts to try to pull apart. There we go. And you can see how that kind of gives the impression of the nose there, just a little bit. And then round that out a little bit. So these are just tiny little tweaks that we're making that kind of add to the overall effect, but nothing crazy. All right. And just like that, these two cousins are done side by side. We got pretty dang close. And with that, our night is complete. So we just need two more. And join us next time when we move on to the next piece, and we'll be almost halfway through doing this chess set. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned. Check out the playlist. It really helps me out if you were to leave this video a like if you found it helpful. And other than that, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.